Okay, hi, good evening, everyone. This is our 54th Science of Triangles. Really amazing. I didn't think we'd been at it quite this long, but there's so much to it, and when we finish the work in Esoteric Astrology in this one section, then there have been some compilations provided, especially by Starling David Hunter, who has, I think, taken the Triangles work very seriously over the years, and the great invocation. So we'll have plenty to deal with, including the microcosmic triangles within our own etheric body, and well, there's plenty to work upon, including your own questions of these things. Basically, we were working on three paths and some of the signs of the zodiac that are connected with these paths. You may recall, well, I'll tell you what, let's not jump into it too quickly, okay? Just let's have a little alignment, I think. Yeah, we'll do that. And then I'll say hi to you. As I say, lately with some of these seminars, only the brave are showing up. You know, it does get pretty intricate, and it goes quite deep. So it is a challenge, I realize, and I'm grateful to you for being here. So, you know, in the silence we come together. And we create kind of a group mind, all of us contributing something to it. So that from the group mind, there can be sent forth a kind of invocation which draws down greater light. The light, love, and power of the soul, of course, and then as we progress, the impersonal understanding of the spiritual triad, which, as you know, has been considered the personality of the monad: will, wisdom, and activity, and Atma Buddhi Manas is the personality of that unified threefold something on the monadic plane, about which DK has written a fair amount, and which he, I think, via the Antikarana, encourages us to approach. So, you know, this morning we had our usual triangles meditation, which is involving the personnel, whoever you may be involved with, in one or more triangles that are considered to be part of the larger picture of the planetary triangles. And then the reaching to the great former planetary logoi, the Buddhas of activity, who are three beings. Wherever there's a 3, you look for a 9, you know, so there are 3 beings representing the intelligence aspect on our planet. At least 3, and these 3, we call them Buddhas of activity, or Kumaras, and sometimes there's a rotation of these Kumaras, so that the so-called esoteric Kumaras become exoteric and Buddhas of activity, and vice versa. But these great Buddhas, they do, I mean, anything, you know, what is a Buddha? It is, you know, basically someone from the 7th initiation onward. we call the 7th and 8th and 9th degree beings, we call them Buddhas. And sometimes he deals with this subject, and he hints at the vast scope and power of these beings. So our purpose here is to see the larger picture and where we may fit. And in the morning activity, it keeps switching back and forth, as you know. We do the more standard relationship to other disciples who are spreading the goodwill and the light via the great invocation and via their creative imagination. So let's just sort of sound an Om, declaring our intention to learn as much about the larger context of triangles as we can. It's not only a lifelong project, as you can see from this chart from Cosmic Fire that Tuya prepared according to the proper colors, at least one way of looking at it. There's a lot of triangles. And it takes us up to realms way beyond anything the Tibetan has discussed. Takes us into the realm of such beings that they each contain as their chakras, 7 major ones about whom naught may be said, or supercosmic logoi. This green triangle out of which it says that the 7 rishis of the Great Bear are coming. That's just one of the chakras. And the 7 Pleiades, I think, maybe are another. And the 7 major stars of Orion, and Orion in general, another chakra. And the 7 major stars of the Little Bear, another chakra. So these are parts of a one about whom naught may be said, represented by a triangle. And each one of them is a kind of a super cosmic logos, and is taking the role of a chakra in something that is beyond what is called the unknown on page 293 of a treatise on cosmic fire. So, you know, this science of triangles, it goes way out there. And here's the unknown. I call it a supercosmic logos, but then what you call that being in whom 7 unknowns, or 7 ones about whom naught may be said, form the 7 major chakras. And beyond that too, you know. In other words, here are these beings, and I call them, he doesn't give a name really, but I call them sub-para-brahmanic logoi. And they are the chakras in a cosmic parabrahm. Now, don't think of that cosmic parabrahm as the absolute. It's not. It's not even outside our galaxy as far as I can understand. And, you know, one day compared with this particular kind of chart, compare those 2 kinds of charts, and we'll begin to realize that this science of triangles is an incredibly immense thing. So we talk a little bit about the immensity of it during these videos and programs, and more about the practical side of it. when we offer our Ask programs and deal with our friends who may be engaged in triangles with us and deal with the triangles network of the Earth. Just want to say hi to you, and say I'm glad you're here. And I'll transfer to you over to the other side there where it works out better for her. And I'll just say that hi, Anne and Anna and Annette, and hi, Brendan, Catherine, and Dennis, hi, and Hideko, and Johi Lee, Karen, Leslie, Mariut, Mary, Natney, Nesa, Nienke, Norman, Sandra, and looks like Nia. I know sometimes the words get, the first and second name get reversed. It looks like Tariq is the last name, but I'm not sure. But hi anyway, and Tia and Walter, and Ivenica, and Zenaidi, and Veronica. And over here on the other side, we try to keep things stable and organized. So BL is helping with that, and Tuya's there, and I'm trying to keep the engine on the rails, so to speak. We've dealt with the evolutionary cycle, and we kind of looked at how that might work all the way from the very first crisis of individualization and the very first individual incarnation in Pisces, all the way to Leo. And Leo represents something final with regard to mastership, but so does Aquarius Pisces. They are both signs in which you can take the fifth initiation. And, of course, Leo being the fifth sign, Aquarius soon to be the major dispenser of the fifth ray, and Pisces the ultimate sign of synthesis, even though it can certainly be misused in a retrogressive manner as it is now. So there's a triangle there of Leo, Aquarius, and Pisces with regard to the fifth initiation. But it's also another way of looking at it is Leo individual consciousness, Aquarius group consciousness verging towards ever larger groups, and Pisces finally and truly universal consciousness in which one identifies as the great whole. Aquarius is universality too, but I would just say that Pisces is the more intimate. So this first section from Cancer to Leo takes us up to the point of, all of these are involved in individualization, in making the human being who can understand that it is distinct and a center unto itself. So this evolutionary cycle starts out in the early days with some of these signs, Cancer, Pisces, Gemini, Leo, and ends up with the fifth initiation. And then, of course, we can talk about the signs of the zodiac, which I'm just thinking about this right now, and which have to do with Chohanship. And I would say Libra is one of them. Let me put this down, as long as it's sort of coming to me. Libra for the great decision, and Sagittarius for the great journey, and Aries for entering an entirely new kingdom and starting a new journey for the monad. See, every sign of the zodiac has its meaning, but the meaning has to be regulated according to the level to which the sign of the zodiac is applied. You know, there's a lot of difference, let us say, in being a hunter with a bow and arrow, seeking either food or some kind of sport, as they call it, under Sagittarius, and being a seeker of truth on the higher mental plane and beyond, as Sagittarius is one of the intuitive signs. So you never can look at a sign of the zodiac and say, this is what it always means. It has to be taken in consideration along with the, or let's just say that the status, the spiritual status of the individual has to be considered, and then it will be meaningful. I'll give you an example with Aries, for instance. You know, you can be out there on the bloody battlefield and knowing no restraint, and your emotions lead you into all kinds of violence and conflict, or you can be intent on the discovery of true being. He talks about that in relation to Aries. So the main thing is always try to have an intuitive understanding, not, you know, it can't be exact, we're not masters, but where our client or the person for whom we are reading, where they stand on the great path. So the first thing is the great evolutionary cycle, and then the cycle of aspiration. This is just a little review. I get worried that we have so many reviews we never get to the point, but okay, this is trying to have these stages, another triangle in a way, enter our understanding deeply. The cycle of aspiration from the stage of the intelligent integrated man, and that is often when the third ray comes into power. You don't have to be an initiate of the first degree, or around that time, for the third ray, intelligent and integrating, to come into power. And because no one is ever born into humanity with a first, second, or third ray soul. First, second, or third ray monad, yes, and all the other four too, but not with a first, second, or third ray soul. And if you find, you know, someone on the third ray in their soul nature, they've made a transfer. And they can't do it until they've reached this stage of intelligent, integrated man. But that's still not discipleship. We see all kinds of very smart people out there, you know, but they can be as good as bad, and their intellect can be applied to selfish ends. And if you think about the third ray in relationship to the lords of form, as the third ray is a formal, it has to do with matter, we see that the Black Lodge can certainly use it. And at some point he said, well, the majority of them in their soul are on the first ray, which means that isolation is a big deal, and they're not so inclined to unify under the love aspect. And probably, my guess is their monads are on the third ray, as they come largely from the previous solar system. So this second thing is the cycle of aspiration, the stage of intelligent integrated man, to that of accepted discipleship. Now, every one of those people DK was training except for, well, every one of them was an accepted disciple, and every one of them except one had taken the first initiation. And we remember DK's quotation, all true aspirants have taken the first initiation. But the person who was it's an anomaly, really, who was an accepted disciple and had not even taken the first initiation, as I've said, was there for his own protection, and because the masters are not ungrateful for all the work he had done to advance the teaching. So, accepted discipleship, are we accepted disciples? Do we know? Have we had that dream experience, that meditative experience? Have we worked with the thought form of a master? Have we been interviewed in the master's ashram? There's one other thing there too, but five are the indications of true accepted discipleship. How will we become accepted disciples? And it happens before, generally, the second initiation occurs. And it doesn't need to happen in the life immediately before the second initiation. It can happen a little around the midway point between the first and second initiation. It's so peculiar about initiation that sometimes, looking at the life of Jesus, he was pretty much unknown, but being trained in various ways, maybe even in India, so the story goes. From the first to the 30th year, no one knew much about him. And then from the last few years, a lot of people in that area of the world knew a great deal about him. And then his fame and his deeds and his teaching, really those of the Christ as expressed through Jesus, spread all over the world. But notice how big is the span between the first year of his life and the 30th, and then bang, 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 everything is about 10 times faster at that point, until basically he's taking the fourth initiation, whereas at the age of 30, he took the second initiation. Well, it was really a recapitulation, of course. So you would tend to think, and DK does say, that between the first and second initiation there's a lot of time, and many lives may elapse. But just so we don't get too stuck on our ways, I found another quotation from DK that states pretty clearly that you can take the second initiation in the very next life after the first. So that's a shock. And I would just say that the time equation is very much in our hands. So what is an accepted disciple? It's oftentimes someone who is beginning to move towards the second initiation, and Saturn and Mercury are very powerful, and you achieve spiritual intelligence and an illumined mind. Spiritual intelligence and an illumined mind at the second degree, as well as considerable heart unfoldment compared to solar plexus unfoldment. It is a tough initiation, and sometimes DK says the hardest one that a person goes through. There's so much self-criticism involved in it, and I'm sure we all know what that's about. So the second stage, and Mars is important, sixth ray is important, ridding yourself of glamour is important, developing the intelligence and the mind from a spiritual angle is important. So, and from the experience of intellectual expression in the three worlds to that of the probationer, who is seeking trial upon the path. Now, generally the probationer is a stage before the accepted disciple. You have to be a probationer, then maybe an ordinary disciple, and finally an accepted disciple, and it can take a number of lives. Not that we want to get too hung up on where we stand, but we should know more or less what our task is. He's seeking trial to be tested upon the path and is beginning to take his spiritual unfoldment consciously in hand and not just aspiring now and then and when the mood hits him. So, hopefully we are moving, people like yourselves and myself, and we're moving towards accepted discipleship. And this path of probation leading to that is controlled, as we have said, by Cancer, Capricorn, and Saturn. Not necessarily the way they worked in the earliest days, when you were just taking incarnation as a human being, and you were an earthbound soul in petal number 1 of the egoic lotus, as the cardinal signs tend to start the circle of petals. For instance, the knowledge petals, I think, are earth petals, and I think Capricorn starts petal number 1. When it comes to the love petals, the feeling petals, where you begin to discover there's a higher self, and those are triangles, though they are triangles of water, and I think Cancer begins that. And then when it comes to the sacrifice petals, well, there's different ways of looking at them. They tend to, you can think of them as as fire petals, and you can think of them as Aries starting the sequence, going to Leo, and then finally going to Sagittarius on the verge of the third initiation. But there's other ways to look at them. Anyway, there's always triangles involved. Every one of those circles of petals, you are working in a triangular form. And, if you want to read my video book on the subject or listen to it, I think I offer quite a bit of suggestion about what you can do when you're opening up a certain petal, and how your various signs of the zodiac contribute to the opening of that petal. Now, if we are going to be initiates of the second degree, let us say, we have to be working assiduously in petal number 6, which in one way is under Virgo and in another way is under Pisces. And you will recognize Virgo and Pisces as both carrying the second ray, and that's where you really begin to be selfless, not yet totally group conscious in your selflessness, but you really begin to do things for other people for the motive that is a correct one and not just being forced into it. It is a sacrifice petal, and I think that anybody who has lived a Virgo or Pisces life will recognize the sacrifice that is involved. So if you're going to be taking the second initiation, petal number 6, continued growth in petal number 7, and work in petal number 8, a highly sacrificial, scorpionic petal from a certain point of view, and a Leo petal from a certain point of view, where your ego really undergoes a drastic bashing, if I can say so, to get you into shape so that you can accept the Syrian path of training for initiation. So anyway, let's see what he says. Let's read this. The second stage. So we've been through the path of probation, let us say. Now, a lot of us, I think, you stick with the Tibetan. You're not exactly on the probationary path. You may start out that way, and recapitulate and all that kind of thing. But Alice Bailey was so clear about writing with the Tibetan for real disciples. And she says, this is not a school for probationers, who are oftentimes swept a lot by their emotions in an unstable manner, and they don't have that kind of a mental focus which keeps them on target and keeps their emotions from overwhelming them, and keeps their moods from now I want to, now I don't. It makes for steadiness upon the path. So Alice Bailey said, look, people are going to join the arcane school and they're going to drop out. Some are going to drop out because they are probationers. They're not real disciples. So what is it to be a real disciple? You know, and of course, one of the things we should do, I keep on thinking about things we should do, you know, and the beginning and the end of Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1, and all the way through Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2, it really gives you an idea of what discipleship is and what those stages are, and it really needs to be discussed. Basically, DK said, look, I want you to draw people into the ashram, into the great ashram, into my ashram, whatever, and to do this, you will find very successful method if you use Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 1. And this was before he had really written Volume 2, that there's something so attractive about that kind of training and what lies ahead of the truly focused spiritual individual, that they just want to do it and they are drawn towards the ashram. So let's remember that. Okay, well, anyway, here we are with Gemini, Sagittarius, and Mercury. I think if we go back and see the triangle, it's always useful, isn't it? So there it is, Gemini, Sagittarius, Mercury. It's really only the ruler of one of these signs, that is Gemini. But interestingly enough, when he goes into the Sagittarius chapter, he talks about the person with wings on their heels as they race forward towards the wisdom. So even though Mercury is in detriment in Sagittarius, there's some kind of really intuitive skill there. And the abstract mind can get a very good workout. Both of these signs, Gemini and Sagittarius, are intuitive signs. They are both highly mental signs as well, and Mercury is highly mental and intuitive. So it's almost as if these two great lords of constellations are training the lesser god Mercury. And that's how it goes. You know, we all have our teachers, and even great gods like Mercury have their teachers, and certainly the lords of the constellations, Gemini and Sagittarius, are being taught by a one about whom not may be said, or a, you know, kind of a super cosmic logos. So the great chain, or ladder, let's call it, of hierarchy goes on and on. So let's see what he says here. If we want to get the big picture, if I can get this thing to move. Yes, I can. Gemini, Sagittarius, Mercury, which are an expression of the Pleiades. Now, isn't that interesting? Because the Pleiades are known for their particular intelligence. And you may have noticed that the triangle that I think represents the Pleiades, which could even be a cluster of 1,000 stars, is green. Now, DK didn't give that, but Tuya worked on that, and Keith Bailey worked on that. And, you know, it is in the third position if you go in the counterclockwise direction, which from one perspective is the right way to go. You know, clockwise always seems good when you don't want to follow the left-hand path. But from an astrological perspective, It's the counterclockwise motion which shows that you're really on the path of the soul, and not just on the path of the personality. So let's see here. So, expression of the Pleiades. It's very intelligent. Now, the Pleiades have been differently assessed as to what their rays may be. The third ray is very prominent, but so is the second ray. And cosmic Buddhi is related to the Pleiades. If you read between the lines, you definitely understand that cosmic Buddhi is related to the Pleiades. So that's the third ray and the second ray. And if the Pleiades, we're going to make another triangle here, okay? If the Pleiades are the hub of the whole revolution of our solar system and other cosmic logoi solar systems, in other words, constellations around the Pleiades, then it's very central. And there may be something of the first ray, at least with respect to ourselves, involved in the Pleiades. Now, if that were so, and I'm not saying yet that it definitely is, it would have a very strong relation to the Earth. Now, maybe you know the rays of the Earth. Excuse me, it can be found in the latter part of Esoteric Astrology, around page 6, I don't know, it's in there, in the 600s. And basically it's telling us the interesting thing, that the Earth has a third-ray personality, a second-ray soul, and definitely a first-ray monad. Now, the Pleiades we've already identified as related to great intelligence, third ray, and then the second ray of cosmic Buddhi, and maybe the first ray as well. Maybe the Pleiades are the crown center somehow in this super cosmic logos. Okay. We'll find that out as we go along, because right now, if we were to get into it, we would be dealing with things which the masters themselves are trying to discern. Okay, so passing on to the path of accepted discipleship. This is the stage of aspiration. Now, he is then becoming increasingly intuitive. Remember what I said about Gemini? The first sparks of intuition are appearing in Gemini, and Sagittarius is said to be an intuitive sign, and Mercury, when it gets into its higher aspect, is not just Manas, it's Buddhi Manas. So it's intuitive. Just take a look at the rays of Mercury. It's got a fourth ray soul. That's intuition. It corresponds exactly with the number 4, the Buddhic plane. Okay? But it's also got these other sort of 3, 4, 5 rays in there, and it's very intellectual potentially. So, this disciple, is then becoming increasingly intuitive and entirely one-pointed. Now that's Sagittarius, isn't it? The one-pointed disciple. Whilst the nature of the pairs of opposites is clearer to him. And that would come through, well, let's see how I want to do this, if I want to do it, through, could one spell, huh? Through Gemini. So the nature of the pairs of opposites, they are vertical pairs of opposites. They basically have to do with soul and personality, or with spirit and matter, or, that kind of thing. It's important to distinguish between the vertical pairs of opposites and the horizontal pairs of opposites, one of which is not necessarily any better than the other. But when you're dealing with the vertical pairs of opposites, is hot better than cold? No, not necessarily. But when you're dealing with soul and personality, then you're on the latter. Okay. So Gemini is what makes the opposites clearer, and one-pointedness is a Sagittarian thing. Sagittarius is one-pointed. So we see that together, these two signs in the life of the disciple help him understand how to be the one-pointed disciple, becoming an initiate, and also to understand the great science of relations through Gemini. The relation of the mother aspect, as embodied in the Pleiades, so the third ray is very, very strong because the mother is connected with the third ray, and of the Christ child, hidden within the form of the personality, remember cosmic Buddhi there for the Pleiades, is realized. And the inner spiritual man institutes the process of initial identification with the spiritual entity on its own plane. Now that's what movement towards accepted discipleship will mean. In other words, we can talk a good game up to that time, but if we're going to be an accepted disciple, we really have to start being able to focus on the plane of soul minimally, okay? So, the relation of the mother aspect as embodied in the Pleiades. See, sometimes you say, well, look, is number 3 the Holy Spirit, or is it the mother? And it just depends on the perspective. It is the Holy Spirit who hovers over the mother as number 4. Excuse me, but from another perspective, number 3 is the mother. So the relation of the mother aspect is embodied in the Pleiades, and of the Christ child, because, very interesting about the Pleiades relation to Virgo, where the hidden Christ is found, eventually to be revealed, okay? Hidden within the form of the personality is realized. And the inner spiritual man institutes the process of initial identification with the spiritual entity on its own plane. Now, all of us are the soul in incarnation. Isn't that so? We are the soul in incarnation, and we have to identify with the soul on its own plane. Okay, so we wake up to that and we begin to do that. The little self begins to react consciously and with increasing frequency to the higher self. Yeah, these are opposites back and forth, and there's a lot of communication going on between lower and higher self. Now look, which is lower and which is higher? It just depends on your angle. In the beginning, Gemini was higher and Sagittarius was lower. Why would I say that? Sagittarius is a very animalistic sign in the beginning. And you've got these horses running around. You've also got a centaur running around, half man, half horse. And in come the angels under Venus. And where do they come from? They come from Sirius, Gemini, and Venus, and the solar angels enter into the Sagittarius animal domain, and by that interaction produce a whole new kingdom. In other words, the 5th kingdom under Gemini approaches the 3rd kingdom under Sagittarius and makes the 4th kingdom. So, have we awoken, people like you and me, to the soul on its own plane? That is a question. Have we awakened to the soul on its own plane because we are the soul in incarnation? Or are we just the bewildered soul, looking around at all the Maha Maya and deluded by the form? So the little self, in this stage, which takes us to accepted discipleship, the Master accepts you. There's now a link, an energetic link, definitely, between the Master and you, and he takes a kind of responsibility for you, for him, which he did not do before. Okay, the little self begins to react consciously and with increasing frequency to the higher self, the higher power, whatever you want to call it. where do these great streams of inspiration come from? You were depressed, and now suddenly, oh, here's something new and exciting in the spiritual field. They come from the solar angel of the presence. The man presses forward on that path, the path that leads to identification with and as the higher self, wherein he learns to see. Now, wouldn't you say, wherein he learns to see has everything to do with Sagittarius, the great sign of vision. Sign of vision is Sagittarius. I have a friend who's into optics. He's a very fifth-rate guy, and he's a Sagittarian, and everything is about the eyes. And, examining film for all the technicalities, but it's all about the vision that you see. That's the vision he's seeing. And when we're an accepted disciple, our vision gets ever sharper of what we find on the mountain of initiation. All right. Now I am going to go on, lest I take forever with all this stuff here. Remember page 50 of Esoteric Astrology. That's an important one, which basically repeats the information or gives it in a different way from what you're going to find here. And it gives it slightly different, and it connects with the creative hierarchies. So Sirius, the Great Bear, and the Pleiades, the hierarchies are different. It's kind of interesting. What you're going to have to do when you study that is you're going to have to study this. And this is the higher of the charts about the liberated and almost liberated hierarchies. We almost have hierarchy number 8 making its way onto the cosmic astral plane, and we've just looked at the idea that hierarchies number whatever they are working on the cosmic astral plane. Creative hierarchy number, what is this, number 6, number 5, number 4, number 3. Have we got those? Let's see. Number 6, number 5, number 4, number 3. We do. And then here's this Cancer hierarchy, which, let's take a look here for just a second. And I'll go on to the next page. This is hierarchy number 6 from a certain point of view, not hierarchy number 7. And it is definitely still on the cosmic physical plane. And this other hierarchy that is trending towards the cosmic astral plane is hierarchy number 7. It's sort of half on, half off, and you begin to understand the function of Neptune as the hierarchical ruler of this particular creative hierarchy. And it says veiling the Christ, and Christ is Neptune, and Cancer is the sign that has Neptune as its hierarchical ruler. So this is a very, very powerful, sensitive hierarchy, which is just about to go onto the great plane of cosmic water, and is probably connected with the solar angels in some way. Anyway, I didn't want to necessarily branch off into that. You know how it is with the Tibetans teaching. If you're not careful, any sentence is a trigger point to take up an interesting subject. So you have to try to stay on the beam. I'm talking to myself now. Okay. Now the next stage that we're going through, and let's read about it, if I can find it, the cycle of aspiration, and I think it's called the cycle of initiation. Should be anyway. And if I go down here, maybe I can find, there we go, the cycle of initiation. So let me just read that, and then we'll talk about the signs of the zodiac that contribute to that. Now, we've already had crisis, haven't we? We have had incarnation in Cancer. We've had the reversal, the beginning of the reversal of the wheel, starting something new in Aries. I think the place to see this thing, let's see here, just take a second. All right, remember that pure reason will allow us to know as the Tibetan knows, okay? So don't despair. You will always end up knowing what you need to know. Okay, so that's individualization under Cancer, and I already told you that Leo and Gemini were important at that stage. The crisis of orientation, well, you live some millions of years and you get tired of it, you know. So Aries starts something new. And it leads to the first initiation under Capricorn. Now, look, you can take initiation in any sign. And the first initiation is oftentimes taken when Leo is strong. But Capricorn and Virgo can also be strong. And really, almost any sign can be strong. Second initiation is usually a scorpionic thing, and Scorpio represents illumination, strangely enough, as well as darkness, but then Taurus is strong for the second initiation, and you learn with Vulcan how to control your desire body, and the great light shines. Okay, and then eventually you stand on the mountaintop, and that is the quintessential Capricorn initiation, the third. And then the crisis of renunciation is so strange in a way that Gemini should be that. But it is sort of the head of the cosmic Christ. It's a very strong heart sign, and it means that the divisions in our nature are put together harmoniously. Because when you're taking the fourth initiation, harmony, the plane of harmony or Buddhi is what comes in. Now with Scorpio, you can fight a battle any place. And that's there's conflict everywhere in this whole process, because we live on a planet whose symbol is the cross. Now that's conflict. You're torn in every direction except it's got a circle. And the circle means that it can all be harmonized and unified. Scorpio is quintessentially connected with the second initiation. And then comes Virgo. He seems to go a little bit backwards, doesn't he? He seems to rise to a point and then come down. Virgo is the crisis of the birthplace, and Gemini is involved there too. And so is Cancer, and so is Leo. Anyway, what birthplace? Okay, in the beginning, there's the birth of the Christ. It's your first initiation. But later, there's a birth into the world of spirit, and Virgo rules the monadic plane. So that's another and higher way that Virgo can be applied. Now, if you have some of these signs lined up, it may mean a progress for you, because you move from your moon to your sun to your rising sign. Now, sometimes they can hint at the initiation that you are preparing for or could possibly take. Every true disciple says DK is in preparation or preparatory training for initiation. Every true disciple, just like every true aspirant, has somehow taken the first initiation, which is usually not remembered. Anyway, these are the signs of crisis. Okay. And we notice that initiation is a great expansion, and which is kind of funny when you think about Capricorn, because usually, popular astrology makes Capricorn so strict. And you know what the Procrustean bed is? Maybe you've heard of it in mythology. There was even the word crust, crusty. There was this tyrant, and he had this bed, and how he dealt with his possible enemies was that he would put you on the bed, and if you fit, that's fine, you live. And if you don't fit, whatever hangs over the bed gets cut off. And that's how Saturn and Capricorn can work in terms of being rigid and hide bound. So, you know, we've all got signs of the zodiac. They're all in triangular formation one way or another. Moon, sun, rising sign, or sun, rising sign, and point opposite the rising sign. They all tell a story. And they tell a story about what you can do spiritually in this life. So going back, I'm determined I'm going to finish this part somehow, okay? Now let's see, signs of triangles, yes, yes, yes. And I've probably, I've gone too far. Okay, excuse me. Every once in a while, if I get really tired, my nose hits the keys and then I don't know where I am. Okay, so 470. Oh, we're getting there now. Okay. Good stopping place. Okay. Here it is. So now the cycle of initiation. And notice we went, the first thing he gave us was the cycle of evolution that covered the whole thing. Then the second thing was when you start to aspire and you become an accepted disciple. A lot of dedication is needed to become an accepted disciple, and generally you have to have taken the first initiation. Now it's possible to take that initiation and forget it, not know it, get lost afterwards, get into a lot of trouble, and then recover. Okay, that's possible. The cycle of initiation. From the preparatory stage of accepted disciple, which follows the first degree, okay, it's a cycle continuing from number 2. From the stage of accepted disciple, and a lot of us, look, we don't know whether we are accepted disciples or not. We have to look towards that that dream experience, that event in meditation, that use of the thought form of a master, and finally the interview in the master's ashram. That is definitely the stage of accepted discipleship. So be aware in your inner life about these possibilities. And I just want to, I tend to want to show you where that is, because it's important, and it's in discipleship number 1 toward the end, and dream experience. Is there nothing? Oh, it's got 2 R's. Maybe dream does not have 2 R's, right? Okay, so here we go. A vivid dream experience. Okay, well, a lot of us have dreams, but what's it all about? A symbolic teaching. Okay, that can come in and light the way. A using of a thought form of a master, either of the master himself or something that he projects into your aura. A contact with the master in meditation, or a definite remembered interview in the master's ashram. And there at the end is definitely the stage of accepted disciple. You may remember reading about Roberto Assagioli, FCD, he was called. He had a very vivid dream experience, and he was already pushing the 4th degree, but he didn't remember it. So, this is interesting about the relationship between the astral plane and the brain. A lot goes on the astral plane that we just don't bring through, and when we drop the vehicle, DK says, we will recognize some very familiar territory. Like we've been there and we, working there and all that. So this is how to measure whether you are experiencing accepted discipleship, and not with any inflation and none of that, none of that kind of thing. But it's a commitment to the process of the ashram. The master recognizes that it's a commitment to your group, and it's the reduction of egoism and egotism, and it is definitely a new relationship to the master of your ray. And remember, Master's DK, whatever your ray may be, he's training a lot of people on different rays. He has that tremendous ability to deal with all kinds of psychological types. Okay, so here we go. The cycle of initiation from the preparatory stage of accepted disciple to that of the master and still higher grades. So he's taking us from accepted discipleship through arhatship, 4th degree, through adeptship, 5th degree, even through chohanship, the 6th and 7th degrees, and he's not taking us into the realm of those really, really powerful Buddhas who are already moving on to the cosmic astral plane. Okay, these 7 crises, now this is so important, okay? So let's try to get this, because we want to see what we're going through. It's very possible you kind of live your life and you just go through stuff, but you don't know what you're really doing, and you don't know what it means to the evolution of your soul. You may be having a tough time. Maybe you're clearing the decks of, old karma. Maybe you're seeing something. Maybe you're detaching from something. Every life doesn't have to be, come up all roses. Let's just say the old saying, and I've told you this before, and I thought it was really amusing and interesting, that the personality loves trines, right? And the soul loves squares and oppositions. In other words, the worse the better. Okay, these 7 crises are each enacted during the process of self-initiation into the world of meaning and of reality. So, in one sense, the 7 crises we've just been dealing with span your whole journey in the 4th kingdom of nature, your whole journey. And in another sense, they span the initiatory period, and notice that in a way, you don't wait for the master to come and say, okay, now you're ready for initiation, so here's the rod and that's that. No, you self-initiate the initiation process. And I wouldn't be surprised if some kind of replica of all of the 7 would not show up in between each one. Between 1 and 2, all of the 7, between 2 and 3, all the 7, and so forth, like that. But first, let's look at the big things, and then we can see. They constitute the keynote or the motif of each of the 7 initiations. So, we can, what rules the 7th initiation? I've got lots of ideas about that, but Aries and Gemini and there's one more, but it is resurrection. So it seems to take you all the way from the 1st initiation to the 7th, and we can arrange those and see how they look. So we go through all 7 stages for each of the 7 initiations. That's what I'm trying to suggest. Each of these 7 initiations permits entry into the state of divine consciousness on each of the 7 planes of divine experience and expression. Now, look, where are we hanging out right now? Let's just be realistic about it. You know, a lot of us, a lot of human beings are right here on the astral plane. And some are bridging Kama and Manas, and they're living in Kama Manas. Some have divorced their thinking from astral influence, pretty much, and are living on the mental plane as minds. Okay. And some are intuitive, and some are spiritually willful, and some know what it is really to be. Really to be. Okay? So basically what it says here, each of these 7 initiations permits entry into the state of divine consciousness on each of the 7 planes of divine experience and expression. So, anybody who's taking the 6th initiation of Chohan ship and is getting ready for the big trip knows what it's like on the 6th plane. And then if we're ready to transfer onto the cosmic astral plane, we go into the sea of fire, and that's so far beyond us, and that's beyond, well, look, you know, the Christ is sitting at the right hand of God, so he knows what is the sea of fire. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has a little coming and going from the cosmic astral plane, and the Buddha is up there on plane number 7 as well. And when I say up there, you know what I mean, intensity of vibration. All right, now, you know I've had to push it here a bit. I've had to push it because I didn't want to once again, you know, get stuck. But what I would have to do before really finishing this, and I hope you'll bear with me, because I know it's tough just to listen to someone, but then I'm looking forward to what you have to say. Aries-Libra. The Sun, which are Aries-Libra and the Sun, which are an expression of the Great Bear, the cosmic Manu, the first ray. Aries, Libra, and the Sun. Remember how Uranian is Aries, hierarchical ruler, how Uranian is Libra, which is the esoteric ruler. And remember about Uranus, it is with the Earth. The only planet that we're given, planets that we're given that have the first ray monad. Now maybe something happens with Mars, I don't know. 5th ray, 3rd ray, but finally maybe Mars has that too. It doesn't really suggest it yet. Okay, almost finished. So the Aries, Libra, and the Sun bring about that focusing of energy in the life of the disciple, which makes it possible for him to function consciously and with intention upon the path of initiation. Now look, initiation is going to connect the base of your spine with the top of your head, okay? I mean, it's going to do a lot of other things too, but when it's completed, we get from the root to the crown, and Aries, Libra, you can see it. Aries does rule the head. Libra rules the royal road via Kundalini into the Shambhala, or the crown. So they both have to do, especially Libra, with moving from the bottom to the top. And Pluto is necessary for that to happen. Without Pluto, without the base of the spine, and without Earth, which is also the base of the spine, we don't get that 5th initiation for our planet and for our solar logos. Solar logos needs us, so let's wake up to the fact. I guess this is the disciple, enters the realm of the formless worlds, because Aries, the sign of beginnings, makes this possible. Remember what I said about Aries in the study or the relationship to pure being, okay? I'm just trying to make it a little bigger because we have to read it. He enters the realm of the formless worlds, Aries is number 1, and in a way, when there is complete unity, you don't have a 2, and you don't have form. He enters the realm of the formless worlds because Aries, the sign of beginnings, makes this possible. Through the potency of Libra, he has succeeded in achieving that point of balance which makes the final escape from the pairs of opposites via the spirit, you might say, possible. Pairs of opposites, well, that's usually here soul and personality, but the spirit includes them both. So Libra is the royal road, and Libra is the peace of Shambhala. Okay, and there's anyway, there's so many triangles up there. Aries, Leo, no, how's it go? Aries, Pluto, Shambhala. Okay, he now, what does he do now? He now knows through transcended feeling, I suppose turned into the intuition, and from identification with the seen vision, the true meaning of being. Now, we're not going to really expect, however much we study it, to know the true meaning of being until we take the 3rd degree and beyond. As a 6th degree initiate in the monad knows what being is, a 3rd degree cannot know it. But we say at the 3rd degree it really begins at the transfiguration, and the monad strikes your consciousness in a conscious way. All right, so that's going to be, and I'm sure you're grateful that it's it's over now. Let me just capture this and put it down here. We've crossed a few lines here this evening, thank goodness, and we're moving into really, really big things. Now, there's 3 triangles, and each triangle is a triangle, and so it goes. Remember, wherever you have a 3, look for a 9. Look for a 9. Okay. Okay, there we go. And this is the end of number 54. And this is the 9th of October. And beginning of number 55, by the way, if you add up the word sanat, it comes out to 55 or 1. And this is the 16th here, after the full moon coming up. And I don't even know what page we're on. Oh, is this where we are? Page 474. Anyway, this is very deep stuff, so we have to go slowly. And remember, you are training yourself to enter into the realm of, what realm is that? Okay, right. The realm of pure reason. That is another way of describing the intuition, and is ruled by Mercury. And DK is called Mercury. When you read DK year after year, think, meditate, apply, you're going to come closer to pure reason and Moria's straight knowledge than you would have otherwise. That's my opinion. Okay. Now, I know I've gone on longer than usual, and we just have to see if anybody's still here. Okay, I think you're kind of still here so far. Now I want to open up the floor, not that you should fall into it, but that any thoughts that came to you in this discussion of the 3 stages, from beginning to end, from aspiration to accepted discipleship, from accepted discipleship to mastership and beyond, and the kinds of triangles that enter into your development on the probationary path, Cancer, Capricorn, Saturn, on the path of accepted discipleship, pretty much Gemini, Sagittarius, Mercury, on the path of initiation, And remember, when he's talking about initiation, he's talking not about so much about the initiations of the threshold, 1 and 2. Now, those are good to have, but they're just the foundation. He's talking about real initiation coming in under the first ray. What are the 2 rays that rule the path of initiation? Ray 1 and ray 7. The path of accepted discipleship is ruled by ray 3 and 5, and the path of aspiration is ruled by ray 4 and 6. Okay. So now, mercifully, I'll stop talking for a very short time. And if anybody has any thoughts, remember, you're in this. You are in this. This is what's happening in your life. Somewhere in this threefold presentation, you are living your life. You are under certain signs, and these signs can be useful in this way, that way, or a higher way. You've got to discover what is your moon sign doing to you, or have you overcome? What about your sun sign? At what level are you using it? How is it manifesting? And what about that rising sign? Is it really driving you closer to the center of your life? Is it really? And how do you know? And when does it manifest? So a life of close self-examination is critical. The old Greek idea, the unexamined life is not worth living. The unexamined life is not worth living. Okay. Any thoughts, questions, statements, whatever you want? Just consult your copious notes, and something will pop up, perhaps. What I'm seeing is a replica of the no thing. The no thing is not nothing, but there's nothing there for me to... Would anybody like to say anything or write anything or question anything? Of course, we'll send this to you. BL and Joe and I will send this to you, and it will be available for your study. And you can also study I've done the complete book of astrology, maybe from a different angle, and you can study that too. There's 160-something programs. Lots to study, okay? But what does it mean to you? See, if I look at my own life, I had the moon in Aquarius with Mars, so, aha, I hear something. Is that you?
Yeah, is that the thunderstorm going on around me you hear? You have a hand up and you also have a comment.
Okay, thank you for the alert. Why can't I see anything? Boy, that's really strange. Okay, here there's a comment. All right, and there's a hand. All right, I feel ahead of the game now. So Chris has a comment. On the astrological chart, if the cross vertical is Cancer on top and Capricorn below, horizontal Libra on the left. Yes, and Aries on the right. Is this what you mean by, well, okay, out by the reversal of the wheel? It's an interesting statement because everything is reversed in your particular chart, because normally it would be Aries on the left and Libra on the right, and it would be Capricorn above and Cancer below. So that is an outer symbol, but of what we might call the reversal of the wheel. But I would say, Chris, that there's going to be thousands of people born with that configuration who are nowhere near coming into a sense of spiritual values, which redirects the energy currents in their energy system, and thus in energy terms, reverses the wheel. In other words, you cannot look at the outer symbol and say, this is definitely the inner process. In a way, you have to study the inner process. You have to see whether the person's struggling between the soul and personality. You have to see how far along they are in winning the battle and all of that. And then if on top of that, they have what you have indicated, then, there's a pretty good chance that this is really occurring. Let's just say with Libra rising, there is, it's law, sex, and money, and in general, achieving a balance between many forces. So the opposite point of view is blended with the ordinary point of view, and some kind of harmony is achieved when this is the case. And it's got to be an interesting one. Like DK said, he said, look, when you're born at the time of a full moon, or you're born with the sun opposite your rising sign, it's never an uneventful life. So this is an interesting kind of chart with a one of the major signs of reversal, which is Libra, on the ascendant. Now, he also gave, in terms of the crisis, Aries, the crisis of reversal. But you've got to study what's going on in your nature to know how to interpret this, because that chart might be the chart of somebody who doesn't know how to use the potentials, and therefore the full potential does not occur. So always study the individual along with the chart. Almost study the individual first, and then you can get some idea of the rays and how to bring the rays into the chart. Now, everybody reverses the wheel, and people like you and me and others, we reverse the wheel probably a fairly long time ago, at least one stage of reversal. We're now on the spiritual path. We have reoriented ourselves. So that's a reversal of the wheel, okay? How long we've been there, DK would tell us, he told one person, okay, good thing you've got the last 5 lives, your personality has been on the second ray, good thing for you, because this person was a first ray soul and a sixth ray personality. When you look at the possibilities there, they can be pretty destructive. So he says, but there's a balance because you've been on the second ray all this time. So he knows those things, and we either don't remember or never studied it or don't know how to get to that point. But he can advise us, and then we will know whether we're really at the point where we're reversing the wheel. But I do suspect of people that study DK or any, Blavatsky or Master Mori, or the real writings, they have reversed the wheel, or at least are in the process of the conflicts which are involved there. And a lot of fourth ray would certainly help, because you've got to achieve the harmony out of those two positions, one moving towards the personality, one moving towards the soul. But I must admit, it's a good symbol that you brought forward, but you can't tell by externals alone. That's my point. That's my point. Okay. Okay, now, there's a hand. Where's the hand? Where's the hand? Okay, here we go. So that's not here. And there you go. You're on.
Yeah, I'm muted. Okay, I want to thank you, Michael, for all these webinars and so on, because I'm just beginning to get a glimmer of what it's all about, but I cannot put it into words right now. I just want to thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate remember what Alice Bailey said. I don't know if you were there when we were reading the beginning of Cosmic Fire, and she said, look, of course she had a special privilege. She was working, well earned, I'm sure, but she was working with the Tibetan, and he said, under the influence of his instruction, I caught glimpses of things that I cannot possibly describe. Vistas, vast things, possible expansions. Well, we're not there with the Tibetan instructing us and so forth, but let's just say a glimpse is the beginning, and a glimpse is real. And we called it the other day the blinking of the dragon's eye, and it's a dragon of wisdom. So, one day that eye is wide open, and a master is called a minor dragon of wisdom. So a master is a lesser dragon of wisdom, and our planetary logos is a full dragon of wisdom. Now, those dragons don't just blink and then you're back to illusion. No, those, it's like you have your eyes shut all the time. You open them and then shut them again. No, those beings have their eyes open. So that's what we are hoping for, and it all begins with a glimpse. So just stay with it. Look, the Christ said, greater things shall you do than I do, okay? He said that. So he means it. Somewhere along the path, we will be on a stage of the path, which is in advance of the stage of the path that he's on right now. Of course, he will have moved far ahead. The complete enlightenment, the complete omniscience, the complete omnipresence, the complete omnipotence as regards this universe lies ahead of every one of us. So it's now just a question of being patient with ourselves and sort of going along in a way, look, this is complicated, but have faith in yourself, because there's a part of yourself that already knows all of this on the very highest levels. And before long, that higher part will begin to speak to us. And we're always, in a way, just at the beginning. When even the great God of the universe, when it compares itself to what lies beyond the universe, has got to think, I'm just at the beginning. So let us persist. Thank you, Natnia. Thank you. And by the way, do you pronounce in your name, is it Natni or Natnie?
I call myself Natni to some people in groups when I meet them, but my name really is Natalie.
Natalie. Yeah. So it's
see, but you say it right. You say Natni. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best. Okay. Thank you, Natalie.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Now, other people with thoughts that you want to express or questions that you want to look. We're on the path. We're going to make it. We've made it. What can I say? What we really are, this is nothing new. Every universe is different. Every universe has its own archetype. And how many universes have there been? If you try to make a definite number out of that, there's always going to be more than a definite number. Okay? So we are long experienced, not as little human beings and all that, but in the true entity that we are experienced. And now we're having this human experience in a vast universe, and we're on the upward line where we're going to unveil all the things that are in the way of perceiving reality. So let us have confidence, and I get depressed just like anybody else and sometimes feel low, but if I'm properly reminded, and maybe I read the Tibetan's books or ponder a mantram, or something happens, or I catch one of those streams coming from the angel of the presence, suddenly the consciousness is uplifted. So let's work on that uplifting of the consciousness. And I'm speaking to myself always as I speak to you. Okay. Anything else? I do want to say, you might wonder, okay, look, here's a lot of astrology. Yes, but astrology is just the relationships of the beings in universe. And a lot of those relationships are triangular. I mean, look, any one of the great figures, the 8-pointed star, the 7-pointed, 9-pointed star, whatever, 5, all these different things occur out there or in there. And the great science of relations is a tremendous thing. And we look at that a little bit mathematically or geometrically. Now, DK is asking us to look at the fundamental building block of the triangle. We know what a stroke of genius it was when Buckminster Fuller came out with his geodesic domes, very stable, triangulated, and, pointing the way to the future, very stable structure. And once we can triangulate the energies in our etheric system, we're going to be a lot more reliable on the path, and we're going to be a lot more like a disciple than someone who's, now I'm excited about it, now I'm not, now I'm excited, now I'm not, that instability of the emotional body when it approaches these things. We need that steady Sagittarian, burning, straight line toward the goal. And we will achieve. We have it. No, I mean, the fact that you're here now, you've always been. So you're the graduate of countless universes. And I don't mean you as a little human being. I mean your real being, the graduate of countless universes. I know it's a big stretch, but and people think you're crazy when you say such a thing, but okay, this is where the ageless wisdom leads to that kind of conclusion. Okay, other thoughts? Other thoughts. Do take notes as you go along. And by the way, it probably wouldn't hurt when you get this, because it will be on Makara, and BL labors hard to get them there in a timely manner, for which we're very grateful. Study it again, There's a lot here. And recommend to your friends that they get into the Tibetan, which he's presently the messenger of the masters, and he's got a lot to say about the truth. He'll tell you right immediately, you say, oh, it's not the truth because these are just words and you can't embody the truth in words. But he conveys something that is so rare, some glimpse, there's that word, some glimpse of the truth. And why should we be satisfied with living in a veiled condition where we see illusion and glamour instead of the truth? We have to become profoundly dissatisfied about that. And I think, we can be. And then we make some real progress. Okay, hold on. Here we have Anna. There you go. Okay, go ahead, Anna.
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
Now, what I was thinking that this is a superimposition process of mind between astral and Buddhic plan. It's like a torus. The mind raises two poles of astral and Buddhic plan and creates a portal for the spiritual will, so spiritual higher mind. So our mind, through the petals of the lotus, through the knowledge first taken, after aspiration and after sacrifice, creates these portals for intuition to bring so much light that we become illuminated, enlightened, something beyond us interferes. And that's what probably master is.
Yes, yes, Anna. It's so interesting. To a degree, you're talking about the synthesis petals, and what's really interesting, the monastic permanent atom.
Yes, yes.
Can you hear me? The monastic permanent atom creates the 9 petals. Okay, let me go over here, like this. Here it is. This is the monastic permanent atom here creates the 9 petals when the angel of the presence helps to do so, but not these 3. These 3 are not created by the monastic permanent atom.
That's right. That's right. They're created by the jewels, by monad.
These 3 are the Buddhic correspondence, and then this one, the jewel in the lotus, is atmic monadic. So we have a very strong contribution to the egoic lotus coming from all the levels of the triad and also from the monad. So all of this will unfold for us in time. Now, you brought up Taurus and you brought up Scorpio. And what's really interesting, Taurus is the mother of illumination, okay? Now, but it's very interesting when you consider, let's see, Anna, you don't have a headphone, do you? Possibly?
No, not here.
Okay, but it will help you. It will help, and will keep the echo from occurring. But anyway, look, Scorpio is he gives 5 or 6 stages of meditation. Okay, Leo concentration, Virgo meditation, Libra contemplation, and believe it or not, Scorpio illumination. And then he goes on inspiration and initiation and so forth. So both these signs, Scorpio and Taurus, which can be so at first veiled in darkness, end up being great expressions of the light. Great expressions of the light. So it's your daughter, you say, that has this combination, did you say? I hope I understood you properly.
No, I didn't say my daughter has this combination. No. What I was saying that basically, well, I see that the Scorpio and Taurus, what we achieve in Scorpio, it empowers the Leo to become like a Leo become like a servant of Aquarius or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, or something like this. Liberator of Aquarius or portal to Aquarius.
Yes, I think in the fixed cross that can happen. Take a look at what I have on the screen right now. The 7 solar systems in which our sun is a heart center are ruled zodiacally by Taurus and Scorpio. So we're very close to these signs in our particular life, and I'm going to recommend Anna that you want to get yourself a headset, and then we'll all hear each other better. But I'm grateful that you spoke up, and thank you for that. Anna, do you live in Italy?
No, UK.
Okay. Where are you from originally?
Russia.
Ah, Russia. Okay. Very good. All right. Well, thank you for your contribution. I appreciate that.
Thank you for everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Okay. All right, friends. Let's see. I think
You have another hand up.
okay. Another hand up, and I also see Anne Veronica.
Right, right.
Okay. And Anne Veronica says, I was thinking of the horizontal pairs of opposites. They seem of no value, but they are there, and they must have a purpose. What is it? Well, I tell you what, I once gave a lecture on the horizontal pairs of opposites. And I used to think of that as Libra, because the scales go like this, you know, and so forth. Okay. But I realized with the Tibetan, or he made it clear, that the Libra pairs of opposites are higher and lower, which I did not expect because it did not look like the scales. The horizontal pairs of opposites can be judged as to their value according to the circumstance in which they are found. Now, you know, like I say, hot and cold, which is better? Neither one is better. You can die of the extremes either way, or you can receive what is needed with the right calibration of one of those horizontal pairs of opposites. Which is better, up or down? Well, you know, from a certain point of view, you could be called superficial if you're always up here, and you never get into the depths, and down is very deep. On the other hand, you can get buried in the depths and you never get to heaven, you know? So it's very relative. The horizontal pairs of opposites have to be judged according to the circumstance. Just think of extremes, and either one of them is not necessarily better than the other. You know, you can sit down, meditate on it, and name some of these sort of horizontal extremes. But they're both necessary, and they have to be judged. Which is better, fast or slow? Is fast necessarily better? Fast can haste makes waste. It can mean that you're going so fast that you overlook the important things. And what does Master DK say about the second ray? He says, the wise use of slow action. Why does he say that? See, but sometimes you can be a laggard, and you're in a solar system and you're the last one to leave it. Is that good? Not necessarily. Or you can be moving with the avant-garde. So it's very, very relative, the way of judging these horizontal pairs of opposites. More difficult in a way than judging the vertical pairs of opposites. So, well, they have a purpose. Everything is divided into duality in any system. It's part of the numerological proliferation into emanation. The numerological proliferation into emanation. Every number is an entity. And, you know, all these entities have their purpose in relation to each other. The Pythagoreans considered the number 2, kind of a demonic number, because it opened the door to infinity, which used to drive them crazy. You know, so they wanted things to be in cosmos and well organized, and infinity just had a whole bunch of rules by itself. So it opened the door to multiplicity, and that multiplicity led to endlessness, and they couldn't handle it. There was something about Pythagoras' dream. He went to a grotto or some kind of place on the property, I suppose, and he took a rest, and he awoke very disturbed because he had dreamed some kind of mathematical dream which was chaotic, and he was an individual for order and for understandable relations. And now into mathematics, we understand all kinds of things about irrational numbers and, things that cannot be worked out evenly and have sort of a quotient or a result that goes on forever and so forth. So let's just say there are many things in cosmos. From one perspective, they are disturbing. From another perspective, they are exhilarating. So what purpose is it? Well, it's just how emanation takes place. The one becomes the two, becomes the three, becomes the, and so on. Looking at the fixed cross, the horizontal line has two very powerful signs, Taurus and Scorpio. Yes, and all of them are powerful. And there is value there. The material of Taurus goes to higher spiritual values. Now, I'm having trouble here. I can't. I don't. Maybe there's nothing more. I think that's it. But look, all of them are powerful, and they are all very testing. You get onto the fixed cross, your soul is going to emerge instead of form. Most of us, Taurus can really be involved in the form, so can Scorpio. But the higher explanation, the higher application, frees you from those things. So, Taurus, blinding light. What do I do with this? It's too much for me. Leo, fiery pain. That's what Moria talks about, the sacred pains. And he says, he was quoting someone, and he was referencing a sister, a nun, and she's moaning, I burn, I burn. And he's saying, these are the sacred pains, the fiery pains. Scorpio, bitter woe. Can anyone suffer so much as you can suffer in Scorpio? Bitter woe. And Aquarius, liberation. Liberation, and yet the cross of liberation. They're all extremely powerful, and usually you put Taurus on the ascendant, I guess. And then up at the midheaven on the cross, we find Aquarius, universal consciousness, So they have a purpose, and and another thing too I want to say, that you can have a chart with any kind of signs at all, and the signs do not dictate which cross you're on. You know that. Now, in other words, let's just say you're a newly made human being, you've just had a few incarnations, and you're born at a time when there's a lot of fixed signs. You are not on the fixed cross. You are very definitely on the mutable common cross, with the fixed signs interpreted in terms of the mutable or common cross. Now, the cardinal signs will take you to Sanat Kumara and beyond. If you have a bunch of cardinal signs, does that mean you're on the cardinal cross in consciousness? No. You're probably, people like ourselves are trying to get onto the fixed cross and stay there and live there and have the soul develop. So we are on, let's say, the fixed cross in consciousness, using a lot of cardinal signs as they should be interpreted on the fixed cross. Now, here's another one. What if we actually are on the cardinal cross and we have a bunch of common, mutable, and fixed signs? We interpret them in terms of the opportunities and tasks of the cardinal cross. For instance, the Christ is on the cardinal cross, the Buddha is on the cardinal cross. So, they have horoscopes too. And so do a lot of the higher beings. Certain masters, he usually gives 2 signs for each one of the masters, okay? And those signs may or may not be. For instance, here, I'll give you an example. Master Kudhumi is interpreted or said to have the sun in Gemini and Pisces rising. Okay. Are we to interpret those 2 signs as if they are the mutable cross? just the mutable cross, plain and simple? No, he's on the cardinal cross. He's a Chohan. So we interpret a very high meaning of two mutable signs as if applying to an individual who in consciousness and being is on the cardinal cross. And, just in case we don't know it, but we do know it, we should know it, we better know it, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, the cardinal cross. Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, the fixed cross. Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, the mutable cross. With astrology, and I suppose with triangles, there's just certain things you have to memorize. It's just like ABCs. So I hope that gives an idea, and believe me, Aquarius and Leo are very powerful signs, and he says heights of service can be reached in both of those signs. Thanks, and Veronica. Okay, well, I think, okay. Am I missing anything there, BL? Because if not, I think...
Yes, you have a hand from Nisa.
Oh, okay. I don't know what's making it difficult for me to... there we go. Nisa. You, now let's see, you're self-muted, so you have to turn green. Click your microphone, and your microphone will turn green if you click it properly. Otherwise, we won't be able to hear you. You're not muted from here. Or if that's not working for you, then just write out what you want to say. But, everybody's got to find your microphone, and you click it, and it will turn green. And green means go. Okay. So do your best there, Nesa. Do your best. Well, look, while Nesa's taking a look at all this...
Oh, is it there?
Yeah, I hear your voice. So,
hallelujah.
okay.
It's probably really a short question. I've been reading AAB and meditating Alice Bailey material, bridge work for decades now, and I've been facilitating a group, and somebody came to me and was interested in reading something, and I don't usually proselytize or try to push stuff on people. People come to this little group to meditate, and I keep it at that. What would you suggest for somebody who hasn't been meditating, but seems to be blossoming and showing interest? What Alice Bailey book would you recommend to somebody?
I would recommend Initiation Human and Solar and the first part of Letters on Occult Meditation.
Okay.
Those, they look like they're easy books, and in one way, he says they're written for the general public. At least Initiation Human and Solar is, but you always have to go back to it because there's something missing in the big books that you find only there in Initiation Human and Solar. So I think that's a wonderful one to deepen yourself with, and it gives you tremendous incentive. And then in the beginning, if you're patient, of Letters on Occult Meditation, there's just some excellent material on meditation. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't leave out From Intellect to Intuition by Alice Bailey herself, because she does some wonderful things with explaining what is the meditative, contemplative process. I think her thing on contemplation is fantastic, and that's what I would recommend. A lot of people like to dive into Cosmic Fire, First book, Cosmic Fire, but, it's better to.
Mine was white magic, but there you go.
Okay, no, and that's a good one. It's supposedly a book on discipleship and the control of the astral body. That's what he says, and of course there's stuff in there that we just, we cannot fathom it. But he says if you study it intellectually, when I'm able to give out the keys, then you will proceed much more rapidly because you'll have the foundation. So it's a great book. It was. Yeah. It's a great.
I studied in a group, so we would and meditate. It was a meditation group, so we would study and meditate and study.
Right. I think the whole thing is a balance between meditation, study, and service. If people are inclined towards one or the other, but if a balance can be achieved, that is useful. I think the last complete book that I finished in video commentaries was White Magic, and I found it, wow, this is really chock full of necessary information, but also some information which is far beyond us in terms of the real mantrams and meanings of the rules. But that will come. That will come. So,
layers.
It's approachable. It's approachable, definitely. And I think this too, that meditation becomes much more fruitful when it is backed by a good and growing academic foundation. So I would provide that kind of food for the meditator as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Nissa. Thank you, and good luck with your continuing work along this line, because we have to teach and spread the knowledge of the ageless wisdom. That's what DK does. That's what we have to do. Okay, thank you. Okay, BL, so how am I doing? Anybody here that?
I think you got everybody.
Okay, very good. Anybody on the side of staff that wants to speak over here? Okay. Well, look, because we are in the field of astrology, a lot of our study of triangles has to do with planets, stars, constellations, not yet galaxies, although I'm sure there's a great relationship between Andromeda and the Milky Way, and that some other, I don't know which, galaxy has to get in there to triangulate the whole thing. The masters in their books have named the local galaxies and know their qualities. And this you can gather from the treatise on cosmic fire. I just want to also say that with regard to cosmic fire, which is, I can't, both Joe and my wife seem to think that doing 3 webinars a day is too much. I'm a little bit of a fanatic, and I believe that it's not too much, but I have to acquiesce to the wisdom presented. So we're trying to find the right day to alternate on Cosmic Fire between discussion groups, and then I'll provide some study material for you, and then in 2 weeks the discussion group. So it'll be webinar video, like that. That's our present plan. There seems to be a big hunger for the curriculum of relativity in Cosmic Fire. It's a wonderful book, and even though, we're not going to run around saying that we're initiates because it's a book written for the initiate consciousness, we can definitely gain a lot from this wonderful synthetic compendium of the ageless wisdom, which he insists is only the ABCs, okay? So, he knows quite a bit, and we're going to learn along with him. So we'll let you know how that works out. Right now, Tuya and I are up north of the Arctic Circle in the Little Bear Meditation Center, and it's getting Arctic out there. And not that we mind that, but we'll be heading down to the Temple of Silence and in the Helsinki area in a few days. And we'll just do our best to continue with the programs as they are slated to be presented, but when we're traveling, the train makes for a lot of interruptions. Yeah, and frustrating maybe experience. So the train is not a good way to deliver a webinar. Although I could try it sometime, but I already did in a way. I had 5 dropouts in 1 hour's time, and that wouldn't work when you're, trying to have a group process. Okay, so let's have a little alignment as we're going to close shortly. And remember, these videos, thanks to BL, are showing up on Makara, and you can get oriented there. And there's a lot to listen to, and also the broadcasts are showing up on YouTube as well as Makara. So, you have a lot to study and meditate upon, and then apply the best you can, okay? So where am I? Who am I? What's going on here? Okay, right. I wanted to get our great invocation up and running here. Every day, it's a big instrument for making the externalization of the hierarchy and the reappearance of the Christ as acceptable to humanity as it can be. Okay, so friends, here we are, little beings, emanations of the one great universal logos. And we live not in the archetypal world yet. We live in the mosaic world, You've looked at a mosaic, it's made of pieces, but if you stand back enough, completed images appear. So that in my view, that is called the archetypalizing of the mosaic world. Blavatsky said that there are some people for whom theosophy is literally their last chance. It's kind of a dramatic statement. But, they may be hovering on the edge of despair regarding this world of Maya, and along comes theosophy and the ageless wisdom and changes everything. And maybe some of us are that way too, But we live in this great cosmos, one of countless, sequential cosmoses. And there are just billions upon billions and trillions and quadrillions and nonillions, name the big numbers of apparently individual separate entities in this cosmos on all these different planes. And yet they are one being, and we are the being that they are. And we're looking at the organizing principle, the way high vibration reaches lower vibration. And triangles is a major method here. we want to make it so the seventh ray word of power, the highest and the lowest meet. We're trying to bring that about. So let your mind be very expansive and have what DK calls intensity of feeling as you work with this triangle's work, and realize you're into a not just a personal subject, it's a universal subject. And DK says it must go on. And we will sound the great invocation. You know, you can, where you are, as long as you're on self-mute, you can say it out loud if you wish, or however you want to say it, or think it. Because this is our great instrument for bringing the hierarchy back to earth in visibility, and bringing the Christ back not for 3 years, but for 2,000 years. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. I went deeply into that one. I hope I didn't leave out the third verse. If I did, then just obey the will of God. That's what the Christ decided to do in the Garden of Gethsemane. Okay, tomorrow we go back with the Ask program. Well, this is all part of the Ask program. Ask and you will receive. Seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened to you. It's an invocative formula, and we're dealing, dealing tomorrow with the reappearance of the Christ meditation, one of the ones that DK gave to us in Dyna 2. So thank you, everybody. And Tuya and I and the whole team send lots of love to you and many blessings, and the will to persist. Let's hope we can all achieve that, because if we do, we will accomplish. Very definitely we will accomplish as we ever have done. Okay, we'll see you now. All the best until our broadcast tomorrow morning, and that's 5 a.m. GMT.